Okay, I see we're now streaming live, so I want to welcome everyone to the February meeting of the Tecumseh Committee of Adjustment. I see all the members of the committee are here, so welcome. That's basically the roll call, Donna. Call the meeting to order. Is there any pecuniary interest of any of the members? Daniel, can you state the
Yes, Mr. Chair, regarding application variance A1021 for Beech Grove. I am a member of the board of directors of Beech Grove, so I will excuse myself from that particular vote.
Okay. Daniel, you got that, Donna?
I do, thank you.
Okay. So, having seen that, minutes were pre-circulated for January 25th. Donna, we're out 2 computer terminals, typing those up. A lot of pages to those. Is there any question about the minutes? Any addition, deletion, correction? Seeing none. Motion? Tom and Daniel? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you. You see how quick I am? So now we've gotten a notice, the first application tonight was for consent from Mike O'Neill, and apparently there's a request to defer that because he wants to talk with the staff a little bit more about septic tanks. So has he officially notified you of that, Donna?
Barb O'Neill, the agent, has sent me correspondence through email advising they wish to defer it to deal with the septic system concerns.
Motion to defer, anybody? Daniel and Tony, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Good, thank you. So that was easy. We got that one out of the way. The next one is an application for minor variance for a numbered company in Roscommon. Donna?
Application for minor variance A0921 138 2229 Ontario Limited, 5605 and 5635 Roscommon Industrial Drive. The purpose of the application is to request relief from the following subsections of zoning bylaw 85-18. Subsection 14.1.9A, which establishes the minimum side yard width abutting a residential zone is 15 meters, 49.21 feet, and subsection 5.33, which establishes that 80 parking spaces are required, including 2 barrier-free. The proposed relief will facilitate the construction of a new industrial building having an easterly side yard width of 8 meters, 26.25 feet, and a total of 70 parking spaces, including 3 barrier-free, in accordance with the attached site plan. The approval of site plan control application, along with the successful removal of the existing holding symbol that applies to a portion of the lands, will be required prior to the proposed development taking place. The property is designated business park in the Sandwich South official plan and zoned industrial M1 and holding industrial zone in the Sandwich South zoning bylaw. Notice of hearing for the above submission was circulated to landowners within a radius of 60 meters, 200 feet of the subject property. A list of senators is on file. Notice of hearing with a sketch attached was sent to the applicant, each council member, clerk, public works and engineering department, planning and building services, fire department, and all required agencies, and to each member of the committee of adjustment.
Thanks, Donna. Mr. Good, were you here for this particular one?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And you are representing?
The agent, Rosati Construction, representing the applicant, Number Co. 1382229 Ontario Limited.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of other names that are here for this one. I think Mr. Farhat.
Sorry, just getting off mute. Yes, Rashid Farhat here, solicitor for Damaris Family Holdings. They own the property to the south, 1100 Highway 3.
Okay. And Ms. Peters.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And you're here for?
Damaris Family Holdings.
Oh, okay. Are you both going to speak, or is your lawyer going to speak?
Mr. Farhat will speak on our behalf.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Good, you're here for the proponent, and usually at this point I would ask you, and so I will, I would ask you if you have anything to add that the committee needs to know about this application that isn't in the documents.
Just Mr. Chair, that we'd like to reiterate with the documents provided by the town that we agree with the proposal as presented by the administration. We do agree that the proposed minor variance does meet the 4-part test. We wish to emphasize the fact that when this property was first developed, it was there was an 8-meter easement that was conveyed or at least provided to the town for a drainage easement. That drainage easement is still in good order. That is between the proposed building, as you see Mr. Jeffrey is presenting it now, between the proposed building and the abutting residential lot. So that buffer zone there is in fact a drainage easement. And on top of that, at the time the property was developed, we were required, the developer, to install trees, which you can see there from the aerial view, and a fence along that particular property line, as well as mitigating factors for future development. So we wish to emphasize that that was in fact thought of when this property was to be developed, and that the proposed use is in keeping with the business industrial use, business park and industrial use. That is keeping with the city's bylaw, and that as well, when we were considering this particular property and the development thereof, we were looking at making sure in mitigating as much light and noise pollution as possible. So the arrangement of the building is designed to direct noise and lighting away from the residential zone. So we wish that those thoughts would be considered by this council as they review the administration's notes. Unless I may be of any further assistance we are here with Mr. Rosati, Tony Rosati, and Nicholas Rosati as well, and we are available for questions.
Yeah, there may be some. Well, as a matter of fact, does anybody on the committee have a question at this point? No. Tom?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the drainage easement, it is for what purpose? Maybe Chad, you can be best to answer that. I don't know.
Sure, through you, Mr. Chair. Just let me share the screen again. Is everyone seeing the aerial photograph?
Now we are.
So the drainage easement is to convey stormwater from the Roscon development. And let me just back out for a second. Which is the lots along Roscon Industrial. To convey stormwater through this easement to a municipally owned stormwater facility adjacent Highway 3. So that's the purpose of that easement.
So there is a pipe in the ground all along the
There's
border of that property.
Yeah. Yes, there.
And the trees they are on the 1100 property?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the trees are roughly on the lot line.
Okay. And I don't know if it shows the distance from the existing asphalt to the property line, right where that truck is sitting.
Just for clarification through Mr. Chair, to Mr. Marintet, are you asking the distance from this truck to the property
Yeah.
line?
Yeah, the pavement.
Would you like that in feet? So actually, that's 11.26 meters or 37 feet roughly. Again.
Okay.
Okay, Tom?
Yep, that's good. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? Lori?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening. The questions I have, I'm going to start with the parking variance. So questions to administration, first and foremost, on the requirement. Why is it so high of a requirement if the use, as indicated, will not have more than, I believe I read some application, 5 or so employees? Can you describe for us, Mr. Jeffrey, the reason for such a high parking requirement?
Sure, through you, Mr. Chair. The parking requirements are based on standards. And in this case, it's 1 per 1,000 square feet. And there are going to be vast differences in types of industrial uses and their parking requirements throughout these business parks within the town. That standard is meant to capture most scenarios. It's not going to capture every scenario. And when there is a situation where parking is not, the amount of parking required by the bylaw is not necessary, the minor variance process is available to the proponent.
Okay, thank you for that.
Just to comment on that, the parking that's suggested here is for the current use. The problem always becomes, as you know, that the use changes and you need more space, but now there's not enough space on the property for it. So that's why we got to be careful about reducing space.
For sure. Thank you for that, Mr. Chair. I think what I'm looking at is the zoning requirement, or rather the regulation for parking according to the use, as well as the, I guess, the real impact, meaning that, and I really like how Mr. Jeffrey in his report indicated that if there are only 5 employees anticipated and the operation of this specific building were to be considered on the zoning requirements, only 17 parking spaces would be required in normal or typical circumstances. So 70 spaces, it seems to be quite sufficient for the proposal. I thought the 80 parking space requirement was quite high, and now understanding that really it's more of an umbrella approach, I think, by square footage rather than the actual use. So thank you for that. The other question I have pertaining to the minor variance for side yard setback in reference to abutting a residential zone. So a question to the applicant, Mr. Good, as well as Mr. Rosati. Were you able during your design process or during your conceptual discussions, were you able to work within the limits of the zoning bylaw and implement a 50-foot setback as required?
No, member of the committee. We were not able to, within our planning, to be able to accommodate that. Part of the general intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw is to work within, sort of what we established these guidelines here of these distances. Part of what we wanted to make sure happened was to mitigate using what we had available to us, the noise pollution, the light pollution that would be now what we're proposing directed away from the building, It was part of the efficacy of the building to arrange it in this particular way. Arranging the building in any other way would cause undue amount of expenses for our client, create a bottleneck for his shipping arrangements and its trucking, and would, we believe, ultimately result in more lighting and noise pollution being directed towards that southern lot. So it wasn't an efficient use of the space to be able to consider that.
Okay, thank you for that. Just to clarify, however, anything in our zoning bylaw, in the town zoning bylaw, is not a guideline, it is a regulation. So I do want to clarify that for the record. I do understand, however, that you do need to look at the configuration of the existing site, the actual use and the layout of the building and the floor plan. And so for those reasons, I do understand the limitations of that regulation, which is why, of course, any application can proceed with presenting to the Committee of Adjustment for approval for a minor variance. That's it from me, Mr. Chair. Thank you to administration and the applicant for those responses.
There I am. Anybody else have a question for the proponent? I have Mr. Farhat in the waiting room who wants to speak to this, so I'm going to invite him to do that at this point.
Good evening, everyone. Chair, members of the committee, and everyone else. Rashid Farhat on behalf of Damaris. I just wanted to confirm, if it's okay, perhaps through Ms. Ferris, the email that I had sent this morning, that would have been circulated to everybody in the committee?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. So I'll lead with that first, if that's okay. I do believe that there's effectively a lack of notice here. You saw my position on that in terms of the 10 days by ordinary mail in this COVID world we live in, and to, you know, by the time these clients or these abutting landowners get this notice of public hearing, we're 1-2 business days before they scramble to find a lawyer at the very last minute, especially with the holiday Monday. So I guess my first request was going to be, and I would encourage it to be, that this just be deferred period to the next committee meeting to give them a fair opportunity, as 10 days by ordinary mail maybe doesn't apply in a COVID world. That would be my first point. And then the second point, if it's not just going to be absolutely outright deferred just based on the notice, then I think we have some concerns with the lack of information and being able to try and prepare ourselves on this 1 business day of notice effectively.
Is there any possibility you can be specific on that?
Sorry, I'm just going to turn it up a little bit. I'm having a hard time hearing the chair.
Sorry.
No problem.
I asked if there's any possibility you could be specific on
I'd
what
be happy,
information.
you know, on the 1 day's notice that we have, I put together some of the concerns. I'd be happy to raise them with everybody, if that would help, sort of the lack of information and some of the concerns we have with the application. Just keeping in mind that the ultimate request here is that this should be deferred. I don't think it's fair to my clients and myself to argue this application on such short notice. But I'm happy to, yes, no problem, Chair. I can give you a few points that we have some concerns and some questions about, and maybe the administration and the applicant can address some of them, or if that makes it easier.
Well, you're asking for a deferral based on not having enough information. So it's fair to ask what information you need.
Sure, I think that's fair. So first on the notice issue and then on the information issue. So I can add some, actually, I can maybe even add some value. I did hear one comment earlier about the drainage easement, and I'll paint you a little picture, and then I'll give you the information requests or the concerns we have with the application based on the time we've had to look at it so far. The drainage easement there, as I understand from my clients, doesn't have a pipe in it. It's trees, it's overgrown with weeds, and it currently, as it stands, even without this extra paving and without this extra building and this extra development, it currently floods the residential property. Not floods it, I shouldn't say floods it. The water runs off and you were getting giant pools of water onto this residential property. And I understood, I think Mr. Jeffrey was explaining how the water's supposed to come off Roscon Drive and go through and end up at that existing retention pond but it's not necessarily flowing that way. We've had two 1 in 100-year storms in the last couple of years here in Windsor, Essex, and we're getting flooding on our property as it is. So there's some concern about the grading and the drainage and the inadequacy of the current drainage easement and how that's going to be compounded by the new development. So there was the drainage concern. And the other concern was the type of use and what's going to go into that building. Fortunately, I think upon forwarding of my email earlier today, Mr. Rosati, and there was some emails sent from the abutting owner trying to explain what they were going to use it, but our concerns were related to punch presses, stamping presses, semi trucks backing up and the beeping noises that comes with that, forklifts and that kind of thing. To paint a picture for the committee, currently, the Demers are clients of ours, of our firm, and I can give you a little anecdote, probably more than one, where we'll be talking to Leanna, for example, on the phone and have to stop our discussion because you can barely hear each other over the beeping of the semi trucks backing up into the current industrial building. And that building is, I measured it using the same GIS software as Mr. Jeffrey there. And it appears that building is somewhere between 70 and 100 meters away from my client's backyard space versus this new building is going to be 20 or 25 meters away, especially if we allow this minor variance. And if I were to paint the picture for all of us, because we're all living in this COVID world of, I don't know about you, but one of my few outlets is actually to go into my backyard. And in going into your backyard to get out of your house in this COVID world where there's nowhere else to go, this is a 3-shift plant that you have behind you here. And it's 11 o'clock and you're sitting having a drink by your fire pit in the backyard and your shoes are wet because the drainage is not working as it is, let alone to add to it. And you're enjoying the sound of a stamping press that's 100 meters away and you can hear it and feel it while you're hanging out with your guests at 11 p.m. If that's the current situation, how can we add on top of that? And this is just, again, this is on one day's quick discussion with no chance to prepare in terms of what's going into the building, what's going to be done about the current drainage and potentially the additional drainage issues that are going to come with this development. And I can go on if you'd like and talk about where I don't think it meets the zoning bylaw intent and the official plan intent of mitigating and spacing and buffering and all of those kind of things. I didn't see anything in the materials about the 7.5 meter buffer strip. And I was going to ask the administration if it would be 15 meter side yard setback plus the 7.5 meter. Shouldn't it be 22.5 meter setback from that property line? I'm sure Mr. Jeffrey will speak to that when the time comes. I was hoping to raise all these questions and have them if we are not going to just defer it tonight.
Okay. That's fairly comprehensive. Committee have any question, Tom?
Can we address some of the comments as well?
Sorry?
Can we address some of the comments as well? This is Tony Rosati.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, first of all, I wanna talk about, we're gonna go ahead tonight. If the committee is satisfied, there's a request for deferral, so the committee can decide on that. That's why I asked for more information about the nature of the request. Now we have it, so the committee can weigh in on that. Go ahead, Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm satisfied with the Planning Act has been appropriately been followed here. I'm satisfied that yes, it is a different environment. The great thing about this different environment is that you're able to hop on to a Zoom meeting and be able to have these discussions with us. I do not support a deferral of the application at this time. I'll leave it to the committee as a whole, but I would not be supporting a deferral.
Okay, Tom?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification, to Chad, is there a pipe or is there not a pipe, or is it overland drainage, or what is it?
Thank you for that question through you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to confirm, and I'll once again share the screen. So again, I'll ask, are you seeing the aerial photo?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's illustrating the municipal stormwater pipe within that easement. And that's also confirmed by the engineer's comments as part of my planning report.
Okay. Mr. Good, you have a comment in terms of deferral?
And Mr. Rosati's here.
Yeah, we do not wish to defer this application. The owner of the property is under extreme pressure to get this building complete and for contracts that he has been awarded. And machines on order that will be here shortly. So we do not wish to defer this application.
In addition, Mr. Chair, William Good here. We also want to redirect the committee back to the administration's report stating that the issues that I believe are brought forward by the abutting property owner are best dealt with in site plan control.
And also, we also want to clarify that this is not a stamping facility. It is a injection mold facility. I think there was an email sent out earlier by the owner with a small PowerPoint explaining the process as well. And just want to make sure if everyone received that or not. But it's not a stamping press, so I think that was brought up by the other lawyer there.
Okay, thank you. Chad, I assume that administration is satisfied that generally speaking, the property is being developed properly and that this, in your opinion, administration's opinion, this request is minor in nature. Is that true?
Mr. Chair, in our reports, we always provide the caveat because we don't have a two-step approach like we do with zoning bylaw amendments and official plan amendments. So we need to get you the information that you need to make the decision, to make an intelligent decision based on the opinions of all the various agencies and departments that are involved in the process. So we always add the caveat at the end that it's important to hear from neighboring property owners, especially those most affected, in this case, Mr. Farhat's client. So, although I agree that I still contend that this meets the four tests, there is a need to be sensitive to the proximity to that neighboring property and to ensure that any potential issues are addressed through mitigation measures, and those mitigation measures are available to the town through the site plan control process. So if there are any specific issues, they should be noted and addressed through site plan control.
Okay. Can I ask you while you're still on, what it says remove the holding symbol. What's a holding for?
Yeah, so the holding symbol, before any development can take place, the servicing issues and site plan control in this case have to be completed prior to that H being removed. No building permit can be issued for the property until the holding symbol is removed.
And is that a public process?
There's no opportunity for the appeal of the removal of the holding symbol, but there is notice given.
And the notice is to get input?
It's just to make people aware that that's happening. There's no public meeting associated with it.
Okay. Mr. Farhat, you're vigorously waving your hand there.
Thank you. I was actually going to quote you. You were saying use has changed. Mr. Good and Mr. Rosati pointed out that one of our concerns was there going to be a stamping press in here, or a punch press, that if we can hear the one that's 100 meters away, how badly are we going to hear the one that's 25 meters away? And I think you said earlier when we were talking about parking, use has changed. So if this gets approved as it is, I appreciate they did send us kindly a PowerPoint a few hours ago. showing, I forget what he called it, these horizontal machines instead that are not stamping. But what's to stop that from changing? What's to stop this from being approved? And they throw a bunch of stamping presses in there, and now you're sitting in your backyard 20 meters from it. Remember, this is a 3-shift plant, stamping away all night.
Okay, I have a question as well for for Chad. Under the official plan, or is the property, the abutting property, is that the plan to be remain as a residential hamlet, or is it proposed to be changed? Under the new official plan being proposed, I'm assuming there's one being proposed at this point.
Mr. Chair, if you're okay with me answering that question, I'll proceed.
If you think it's relevant, yeah.
Yeah, so the property is designated business park in the existing official plan and is proposed to be business park in the new official plan.
So under business park, and so if that was, what would the setback be in that particular case between properties?
So, Mr. Chair, I'll continue to answer. So the business park policies don't determine the minimum side yards. The zoning does. So if the business park designation is implemented with a corresponding either business park zone or industrial zone, the setback is 6 meters.
So we're well
But
within.
in this case, it's zoned residential, so there's a greater setback requirement.
But isn't the property also being used as a industrial or a business use? Because I mean, they mentioned that they sit in the backyard, but isn't there a building in the backyard that houses a business?
Can you please pull up the aerial again?
So maybe, Mr. Chair, as long as you're comfortable with
Well, we're not
agent
here.
asking questions through me, I can continue to answer them.
I'm just going to suggest that we're not here to determine the proper use of that residential property. We're here to determine the use of this property and the application before us. So I don't think I want to get into a big match about, well, he's doing this, well, he's doing that sort of thing. But the committee can see the map, so I think they can decide for themselves about the use. And I'm sure some of them have been out there. So Laurie, you have a comment on this or a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of comments. The first comment is that the property in question, the subject lands, are zoned M1, right? I mean, if I can get a nod from Chad. Yeah, okay, I thought so. So uses that are permitted by right, I mean, I don't want to get into all of them, and nor should we have to get into all of them, but there are certain uses that are permitted by right. So the argument to say that, you know, stamping or, you know, the noise or the light or a lot of these kind of questions, looking at the land use itself, there are a slew of uses that are permitted by right in an M1. It just so happens that what we're looking at is, does this variance, this proposed variance in side yard setback and parking requirement, does it impact, and how, if any impact, does it have on the abutting properties, the neighborhood? Is it in line with the intent of the zoning bylaw and the intent of the official plan? I'm satisfied with the parking variance. I have no issues with that. As far as the setback is concerned, the limitations with the configuration of the property, the driveways, the radius of the trucks going in and out, the issues that I'm hearing from lighting or setbacks or drainage or buffer for sound, a lot of these will be addressed during site plan control. It is an opportunity for the town to be able to review those development requirements and standards parcel by parcel. So site plan control is for those reasons. And I would hope that the owner, that the abutting properties would trust that administration would not approve a site plan that does not meet the regulations or requirements. It is up to administration to make sure that those standards are met. As far as the floor plan, that's something that maybe there has been a presentation that was circulated. I haven't seen the presentation. I've been clicking away as we go along. So if I can just get clarification from the applicant, the portion of the building to the south, I'm trying to find my cursor, that's closest to the residential lot. That portion of the building, I mean, what's happening in the floor plan in that portion of the building? Is it shipping and receiving? Maybe we can talk about kind of that portion, yes, specifically to the south part of the building.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the proposed new building and the area directly abutting here, that the plan is to have that be injection molding. So in reference to the PowerPoint that was presented, it was presented by our client, the property owner, and it was sent to ourselves, it was sent to administration, and it was sent to the residential abutting property owner and her solicitor. So those are the only parties who had in fact received it. But according to the floor plan that we have designed right now, and the intention for the plan is to have it be injection molding. So I do hope that that answers your question.
So in other words, the whole entire building?
Yeah, there's two machines currently under the first phase. I think by the end there'll be 5 machines, injection mold machines. At most.
Okay, so notwithstanding that, I mean, I imagine, again, during site plan control, the services will be reviewed, the structural will be reviewed during building plan permit review. I mean, this building likely will not be built out of straw or wood, so there will be certain, matters that will be addressed. Noise mitigation, lighting is likely going to be recessed downwards. So in the property to the south, as a residential lot, maybe it's being used, maybe there's a home occupation, I'm not sure. That is something that I would like to, although Mr. Chair, we talked about that we should be focusing solely on the subject site. The use of the land at 1100, is it solely residential? Maybe administration can help answer that question, or is there a home occupation component to it?
Chad?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. The zoning permits a residential dwelling. Home occupations are permitted, but they're severely restricted in the scope of their intensity of their use. There are a number of criteria that have to be met in order to have a home occupation. So primarily they're restricted to the inside the dwelling. In the Sandwich South case, Sandwich South bylaw case, they're permitted within an outbuilding that's not to exceed 398 square feet, I believe is the criteria. So yeah, I mean, you look at the air photo, it looks like it's exceeding the scope of a home occupation. But that's just by looking at the air photo, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I think that's a guess, Chad, but it's an educated guess.
Yeah.
So we'll go with it. Mr. Farhat, you had your hand up. One last shot here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just going to address it's not that my client doesn't trust the site plan control. Committee member Chadwick had suggested, you'd hope that we would trust the site plan control. The building is already there, the industrial use. The site plan control hasn't worked as it stands today. Forget about the new building. The drainage doesn't work. There may be a pipe in there, but it just fills with water and spills over as it is. And the site plan control, you're talking about, the types of uses and things like that. Remember, through site plan control and through the zoning bylaw, you're right. The town's job is to enforce the performance standards that are under 14.1.15 of this business park zoning. And it's not working. Like, site plan may have been done when they built this facility, but here we are today, and you can hear the stamps and you can hear the trucks beeping, and it's in complete violation of no noise to exceed 60 decibels, as it says in your bylaw. The sound of the power hammer, punch press, staple press, we shouldn't be hearing these things. And site plan didn't stop it. And site plan didn't solve the drainage of the current building. So, and just quickly, because it's my last shot here, I heard Mr. Rosati and Mr. Good and mentioned that it's important for time. That's why they don't want it deferred. I will reiterate the notice was inferior. That's my legal opinion. And if we defer it a month, I think your next meeting is a month away, it gives all the players an opportunity to address all these concerns and deal with the administration and the parties to talk to each other, the owner of 1100 and the owner of the applicant, versus if we don't, I believe an appeal will take a lot longer and delay this project a lot longer than waiting one more month and giving us the information that would be fair to give somebody in this scenario.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that.
Thank you.
It
I have,
actually,
I have one question. Has there been an official noise complaint against this property, or an official complaint against the
Hang on.
water that's claimed to be
hang on,
their property?
I don't have a mute button, but I can mute you. I didn't recognize you, William.
Sorry, it was Tony Rosati speaking. I have two
Tony,
questions. Was there official property?
You don't-
Official, oh, sorry.
if the committee wants to ask that question, they will. And maybe having been prompted, they might. But maybe they might not. You guys had a chance to make a presentation, you made it. And whether there's a noise complaint or not, I don't think it's relevant to this because it's talking about use and not about the distance, the small change in distance that's being requested. So let me ask the committee, do they have any more questions? Paul?
Through you, Mr. Chair, being prompt, I will ask if was there any noise complaints against this property at all?
Chad, do you know that?
Mr. Chair, I can't say with certainty, but I'm not aware of any noise complaints that were registered against the property. The application was circulated to all departments, and the building department did not indicate that there have been a history of noise complaints with respect to this property. Just want to elaborate a bit on the performance standards that Mr. Farr was referring to. The Sandwich South bylaw is a bit unique in that it incorporates performance standards into the zoning. And these are things that we would normally address through the site plan control process. And he is correct that there's a provision that says noise shall not exceed 60 decibels. So it's something that the proponents will have to be aware of. It also says that there's no stamping presses allowed where the transmission of vibrations is felt beyond the lot lines. So there's a number of performance standards, dust, odor, that are captured in the zoning bylaw that will have to be met by the proponents. And then we have the extra security of going through site plan control to ensure that that these performance standards are met.
Okay, I saw another hand a minute ago. Tom?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to administration, maybe maybe we could just talk about the site plan control process and what types of items would be discussed there. Would there be fencing or like screening, landscape screening, buffering something to mitigate noise? Would there be insulation requirements in the building to mitigate noise? Or maybe you can just talk about some of the things that would happen in the site plan process.
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair. The site plan deals with the site layout and the on-site amenities, so not specifically with the building materials, that sort of thing. But so it would look at things such as buffering, additional buffering if necessary, fencing, loading space location, buffering of the loading space, lighting, making sure that lighting doesn't pollute beyond the property limits, parking areas, whether they're, what type of surface they have, turning radii, landscaping. So those are the types of matters that site plan control addresses.
And I see that the loading dock is on the neighbor's side. I don't know, is it something maybe through the developer, is that something that could be moved to the other side of the building?
All right, you're asking William then, Mr. Good?
I guess the question is to the builder there, the developer. Can the loading dock be moved to the other side of the building?
Yeah, I mean, the loading space there, I mean, it's based on the use that the owner is requesting. Yeah, it's based on the truck radiuses that we need to accomplish, so I think it'd be difficult to move it in a different location. Drive straight in, backs in.
Good, Tom?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Chad?
So Chair, just one more important element that site plan addresses, and that's stormwater management, which we've heard about tonight. That it's an issue. The proponents through the site plan control process will be required to do a stormwater management study addressing both quantity and quality, and incorporate the findings of that study into the development of the site.
And just to be clear, we do have, in the zoning bylaw, we do have standards with regard to noise and lighting and so on. So there is a mechanism to object to those if they're not done properly. Yeah, okay. Any other question from the committee? Seeing none, you're not on the committee. Hang on a sec. Lori.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just the last question on the enforcement of a site plan control agreement or a site plan agreement. So if there are ever any issues with the existing buildings and perhaps the property owner at 1100 is not satisfied with lighting or the provisions in the site plan agreement, at any time, the bylaw enforcement team can be approached with concerns. I know it was brought up, are there any bylaw infractions? Maybe there haven't been in the past, but these complaints, if they are valid, would be investigated by the town's bylaw enforcement department and for further investigation. So I would just like to pass that on to the property owner at 1100. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. I think the type of what I'm hearing, I might have missed it, but what I'm hearing is that the type of complaints would likely be in the zoning area rather than in the site plan area. So they would be about those measurable things like noise and dust and like that. Site plan would try to mitigate those. Council may try to mitigate those, like dust, making sure it's paved driveways, things like that, that might be in the site plan. But the zoning bylaw still requires certain parameters to be met on the site, I think. And so that would be a basis for somebody to object.
If the town, for example, has a noise bylaw or a lighting bylaw or property standards bylaw, these bylaws are all enforceable, most likely by bylaw enforcement officers.
And I think there are standards in the zoning about noise. I think I remember that from my time on council. In any case, any other questions? Seeing none. Do you have an idea where you want to go with this? I think in terms of deferral, the proponent has categorically stated they didn't want to consider deferral, and I think that means that we have to make a decision on this tonight. So everybody's looking down at the desk. Come on, you guys. Nothing? Paul?
I make a motion to make a decision, move forward.
Okay, and what would that decision be?
I'll support the motion to support. I support the recommendation and motion to move forward as prepared by administration.
Okay,
And meets the four meets the 4 steps, so I'm in agreement with it.
Okay. Lori,
I'll second it, but with a friendly amendment
which is?
subject to removal of holding symbol as well as site plan control.
Right. Okay. In terms of proper notice, I think if we can't really vary from the notice that we usually give on every application that comes before us, and it'd be very difficult for us to find that we were in error there, because that's the way we do it. It's in our rules, and we did everything within our rules. So if it's we might think about that later on, but I think at this point we got to follow what we traditionally do. So we have a motion on the floor. Is there any comment on the motion? And so then will we vote? All in favor of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Motion is passed. Thank you. Good discussion for sure. And thank you, Mr. Farhat, for your attendance, and Mr. Good as well. Okay. You got it, Donna?
I'm ready. Application for minor variance, A1021 Beach Grove Golf and Country Club, 14134 Riverside Drive. The purpose of the application is to request relief from subsection 10.1.3C of zoning bylaw 2065, which establishes lot coverage of 10% in a recreational zone. The applicant is requesting relief to allow for the proposed construction of 106.8 square meter, 1,150 square foot porte cochere highlighted in yellow on the attached sketch, and a 245.9 square meter, 2,647 square foot addition for a future proposed kitchen highlighted in blue on the attached sketch, resulting in a total lot coverage of 14% as depicted on the attached site plan. The subject property is designated Parks and Open Space in the St. Clair Beach Official Plan and zoned recreational in the St. Clair Beach zoning bylaw. Notice of hearing for the above submission was circulated to landowners within a radius of 60 meters, 200 feet of the subject property. A list of said owners is on file. Notice of hearing with a sketch attached was sent to the applicant, each council member, clerk, public works and engineering, planning and building services, fire department, and all required agencies, and to each member of the committee of adjustment. No comments from engineering, no comments received from the building department, and Essex Region Conservation Authority had no objection to the application, but did require a Section 28 permit, and safe access should be confirmed by the town.
You're on mute, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Daniel, can you turn your video off, please, since you declared an interest in this? Thank you. Okay. That's the best we can do other than getting, he's left the room, I guess, at this point, which is what he's supposed to do. Okay. Dave, yeah, that you're here. Do you have anything you'd like to add for the committee at this point?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I just want to reiterate that we believe that our minor variance meets the 4 tests, and there is no negative impact on any of the surrounding properties.
Okay. We haven't heard from anybody, I don't think, have we, Donna? No?
I did receive a telephone inquiry from a resident 2 doors down. He had no objection to the application.
Okay. Yeah, I think it occurred to me that in terms of lot coverage, they have lots of space across the road that isn't counted in that 13%. So the committee knows that. Any question from the committee? No question from the committee. Laurie.
Sure, might as well. Okay, so questions pertaining to the existing site plan. Would it need an amendment? Is it such an old site plan that maybe there isn't an agreement on file? I guess what's the process after this? In other words, you know, what I'm specifically thinking about, for example, is you are covering more of the land. Are you going to go through stormwater management review? To Mr. Jeffrey.
To Dave or to?
Mr. Jeffrey.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair. There are certain circumstances under which administration has some discretion with respect to whether to put the applicant under site plan control. When there are minor additions, and especially additions over existing hard surface areas, you know, it's not something that we would typically do. We might ask for an updated sketch to put on file, but we normally under, you know, where there isn't a significant addition, we don't force them to go through the site plan control process unless there's something to be gained from it.
Okay. I think the question was, is there a site plan on the property?
Yeah, there is a site plan on file, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, my apologies, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks. Laura?
Okay, so likely stormwater management has already been addressed as a part of the original site plan process. I see Mr. Jeffrey nodding, which would have then entailed a stormwater management plan, which should have been accepted and approved by the town. Okay, thank you for that. I see that the landscaping space or amenity space is not being impacted by the addition, if I'm not mistaken, as well as the covered porch or the future covered porch. So I think the intent of the lot coverage is, and rather that zoning regulation is still being maintained, and also believe that any variance of this nature would not impact abutting properties, which is something we always look at as well. So with that said, that's all from me as far as comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anybody else? Thomas?
I think it's obvious, but maybe you can just confirm, Chad, that there's no loss of parking for, I guess, specifically the kitchen addition.
Mr. Chair, that's correct. There's no loss of parking. Yeah. There's very little impact on the functionality of the site and the impact on abutting properties with these proposed additions.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody want to make a motion? Paul?
I make a motion to support the variance because it's in keeping of the 4 steps and the Planning Act.
Tony? That was a support.
There we go. I'll support it. I mean, the addition is basically an infill. It's just closing off an area that basically otherwise, unless you were really there, you wouldn't even notice it exists. So for that reason, I'll support that motion.
Okay. Any more question? Any other questions? On the motion, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Everybody in favor?
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Mr. Gabriel. Thanks for your presence tonight.
Have a great night, everyone.
Can only go up. Can only go up. Dave. Mr. Dowie is here someplace. Yep. Number 4, Donna.
Application for minor variance, A1121, James and Sarah Dowie, 1238 Poisson Street. The purpose of the application is to request relief from the following subsections of zoning bylaw 1746. Subsection 5 25.1C, which establishes that an accessory structure garage shall not be closer than 1.22 meters, 4 feet, to any side or rear lot line if greater than 10 square meters in area, 107.6 square feet, or 2.5 meters, 8.2 feet in height, and subsection 7.1.5, which establishes the maximum lot coverage of 30%. The applicant is proposing to construct an accessory building garage having an area of 33.55 square meters, 361.1 square feet, and a height of 3.7 meters, 12.2 feet, 0.9 meters, 2.9 feet from the rear easterly lot line, resulting in total lot coverage of 35%. The existing accessory structure garage is to be removed. The property is designated residential in the Tecumseh official plan and zoned residential R2-7 in the Tecumseh zoning bylaw. Notice of hearing for the above submission was circulated to landowners within a radius of 60 meters, 200 feet of the subject property. A list of said owners is on file. Notice of hearing with the sketch attached was sent to the applicant, each council member, clerk, Public Works and Engineering Department, Planning and Building Services, Fire Department, and all required agencies, and to each member of the Committee of Adjustment. Correspondence received. The engineer indicated that the owner of 1238 Puzzle Street is to submit details on how stormwater from the proposed garage is to be controlled and prevented from flowing onto the adjacent private properties to the satisfaction of the chief building official. The building department had no comments. Essex Region Conservation Authority, with a review of background information and aerial photographs, ERCA has no objection to the application for minor variance.
Okay, thanks, Donna. Mr. Dowie. Now is your chance to have a word with the committee.
Okay. Yes, we'd like to take down the existing outbuilding. It's beyond disrepair. We'd also like to have a place to house my hobby car, as well as have a bit of a rec room for the boys, because we don't have a basement. Also, Mr. Chair, we were considering, Sarah and I were considering changing the depth to 18 feet and the width to 20, just to access the driveway a little bit better, the angle of approach, if you will. So just rotate it 180 degrees.
Okay. Is that different than the plan you gave us?
Well, the depth of the structure from the driveway is at 20 feet. We'd like to make that we're considering making that 18 feet and making the width 20. Well, yeah, it's just a 180 degree rotation.
Okay. Committee members. Thomas.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant. So just so that I understand, you're going to rotate the garage so that the entrance faces the road?
No, yes, the entrance, the garage door will still face the driveway. We want to make it possibly 18 feet in depth and by 20 wide instead, just to give more room for the pool, and that we're also considering for the kids.
So would the setbacks still be the same as they are now?
Yes, they would be.
And the size of the shed is getting bigger, is what you're saying?
No, sir. It would just rotate 180 degrees. The side yard would still be there. We're asking for the 3-foot rear yard because there's a parking lot behind us.
And what hardship would it cause then if you were to adhere to the rear setback requirement?
We're just trying to maximize the green space and area to be used for a pool that we're strongly considering. And the angle to get from the driveway to the garage door.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Laurie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question to the applicant, or rather to administration. Would this proposed change in configuration warrant an amendment to the application? Do we need to recirculate? Is this cause for us to defer?
Through Mr. Chair, no, I don't believe so. It's a minor change, and if I understand it correctly, they're just it's 18 feet in width and 20 feet in depth, and they'd like to rotate the structure, still having the access facing the road. It just gives them that additional space that they would like in order to accommodate a future pool on the site. It doesn't change my opinion with respect to meeting the 4 tests, specifically given that it's a 1-story structure and that it's the area for which relief is being requested abuts a commercial parking lot. I still have no issue with the variance. I believe it meets the 4 tests, even with the proposed alteration, but it should be addressed if the committee agrees, should be addressed in the motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jeffrey. So further to that, as long as we're satisfied and heard from administration that we don't need to recirculate notice or receive an amended application. Yeah, I do agree that the setback being rather abutting a parking lot is not an issue. What I was wondering, and seeing that there have been no comments received from the building department, or for example, the setback at less than 3 feet, yes, it is only 2.95 feet, but it's not solely for the purpose of maintenance and cutting grass, but also for fire if need be, or, access for whatever purposes. Seeing as this is going to be a garage and not a livable space, it doesn't, for me, make it, a giant issue, because the building department or fire didn't respond, or rather didn't provide any comments. So those were the comments I just wanted to state for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else? Daniel?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to proceed with the application as presented with the amendment that he is rotating it 180 degrees. And that is application A1121, Sarah Dowie, James and Sarah Dowie.
Okay. Support for that? Tom Marantup? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Dowie.
Thank you.
Okay, so now the next two, Mr. Sabelli, Paul is here, Mara is here too now.
Yes, sir.
There's actually 2 applications here. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, there is 2. That's confusing. Help me, Donna. Are they different properties?
Yes, they are. So A1221 is with respect to the vacant lot on north side of Beech Grove Drive, that there was a lot addition to that lot at the last committee of adjustment meeting. And then the application for A13 is to address the deficiencies as a result of the lot addition from the property at 383 Brighton Road.
Right, I remember that one. Okay, go ahead, read number 5 then.
Application for minor variance A12-21, Paul and Mara Sabelli, North Side Beech Grove Drive. The purpose of the application is to request relief from the following subsections of zoning bylaw 2065. subsection 7.1.3 EI, which establishes a minimum front yard depth of 9.14 meters, 30 feet, and subsection 7.1.3 III, which establishes a minimum interior side yard width of 3 meters, 10 feet. The applicant is proposing to construct a 387.8 square meter, 4,174.5 square foot, one-story residential dwelling having a westerly side yard width of 2.1 meters, 7 feet, and a front yard depth of 7.62 meters, 25 feet, in accordance with the attached sketch. The property is designated residential in the St. Clair Beach official plan and zoned residential type 2 in the St. Clair Beach zoning bylaw. Notice of hearing for the above submission was circulated to landowners within a radius of 60 meters, 200 feet of the subject property. A list of said owners is on file. Notice of hearing with a sketch attached was sent to the applicant, each council member, clerk, Public Works and Engineering Department, Planning and Building Services, Fire Department, and all required agencies, and to each member of the Committee of Adjustment. No concerns from engineering, no comments received from the Building Department, and Essex Region Conservation Authority has no objection to the application. However, the applicant will be required to obtain a Section 28 permit.
Okay. Oh, thank you very much. Mr. Sabelli, are you speaking to this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's appropriate time.
Okay, I don't have nothing to add other than as far as the driveway is proposed, we're just trying to obtain the proper turning radius to get into the garage. And that's all I have for you, sir.
Okay. Anybody questions? Thomas?
Just to the applicant, is there some reason that you couldn't adhere to the 30-foot required setback in the front yard?
Yes, we're trying to achieve, we're trying to make enough room to take advantage of the green space in the back, and our future plans are to put a swimming pool in the back as well too. And that's all I have for you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I see no hands. Okay, somebody gonna make a motion? Lori?
I was just going to ask the question, do we need to also hear A1321 at the same time?
No,
We
no,
don't.
that's a different property. That's what was confusing me.
Are they not, though, backing onto each other? We got one facing Beech Grove and one facing Brighton.
They are, but they're different issues on the two. Sorry, Chad, help.
Yeah, just wanted to note the other property is a condition of a severance that the committee granted last month. So it's somewhat technical in nature in that the consent was thought to be appropriate and granted. There was a recognition that the variance for rear yard and lot area would have to be granted successfully for that severance to be completed. So I guess in some respects, they're somewhat related. Given that if the committee were to deny the variance on the second application, the application for severance would also fail. But I think that this one before the committee right now can still be dealt with independently because it doesn't deal with a rear yard issue or anything that would change as a result of that lot addition. So because we're dealing with the side yard issue on the west side and a front yard.
Okay, thank you. Very good.
Thomas?
Just through you, Mr. Chair, to Chad, and maybe I'm forgot the property severance was on the last committee meeting.
Yes.
It was adding property to the property that affronts Brighton, correct? So does not this property form a bit of an L shape at the front? So it's not, it doesn't show an L piece of property on this site plan.
The rear yard is kind of now.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Chair,
Yep. Go
if I may,
ahead.
I'm going to put this lot that is currently before the committee, the variance before the committee currently. I'm just going to outline it on the screen for you so you can see. At least that's what I'm hoping to do. Okay, so that's the lot that the committee is dealing with now. This area here was the severed parcel from last month's application, severing it from this and adding it to this lot. And that has resulted in this lot. That's
Okay.
now before the committee.
Okay, thank you.
It helps, okay. Anybody else? Laurie?
Okay, so now that we kind of understand what's going on, a question solely on this application, nothing to do with the one following this. To the applicant, were you able to consider working within the limits of the zoning bylaw regulation for front yard being 30 feet, 30-foot setback, and side yard being 10-foot setback? Were you able to work within those limits? If not, why not?
Mr. Sabelli?
Sorry, sir. Based off what we're trying to achieve in our construction, we were not able to work within those limits.
Sorry, again, the question being, could you explain the reason why not? So your floor plan, for example, maybe you can shed some light on why you weren't able to reduce the, the front yard. Can you help us understand, I guess, how you got to this particular position?
I'm not sure if I understand the question, sorry.
So the required setback for front yard is 30 feet, and the required setback for side yard is 10 feet. Did you consider those regulations in your proposal?
Yes. So what we're trying to do here is based off the size of the rooms of the home. And we're trying to achieve some green space in the back. We were not able to meet those targets.
Okay. And as far as the side yard setback, 7 feet is your proposal. Do you have, Chad, in the aerial, are you able to take a measurement to the next dwelling? Or the adjacent dwelling, rather? So 7 feet, I mean, it looks like it's quite large. Never mind. Yeah, so this subject site's side yard happens to be abutting rear yards, is what I see. Okay, nodding of the heads. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Anybody else? Daniel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to make the motion to accept the application based on the fact that it is a single family ranch home, not a two-story. And he has met the front yard setback in the one corner of the house at 30 feet, and it's minor in nature at the garage area. And therefore I do approve or make the motion to approve the application.
Support? Anybody? Paul? Okay, any other comment? Yea or nay, all in favor? All in favor. Okay, thank you. Okay, now the technical application.
Application for minor variance A13-21, Paul and Mara Sabelli, 383 Brighton Road. The purpose of the application is to request relief from the following subsections of zoning bylaw 2065. Subsection 7.1.3 EI, which establishes the minimum rear yard depth of 7.62 meters, 25 feet, and subsection 7.1.3A, which establishes a minimum lot area of 836.1 square meters, 9,000 square feet. The applicant is seeking relief for a rear yard depth of 4.29 meters, 14 feet, and a lot area of 6.83 or 683.2 square meters, 7,353.9 square feet, as a condition of application B0121 granted on January 25th, 2021. The lands are designated single-family residential in the St. Clair Beach official plan and zoned residential type 2 in the St. Clair Beach zoning bylaw. Notice of hearing for the above submission was circulated to landowners within a radius of 60 meters, 200 feet of the subject property. A list of said owners is on file. Notice of hearing with a sketch attached was sent to the applicant, each council member, clerk, public works and engineering department, planning and building services, fire department, and all required agencies, and to each member of the committee of adjustment. No concerns from engineering, no comments from building department, and IRCA has no objection to the application for minor variance.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Committee, oh, wait a minute. Paul, are you speaking to this too?
Nope.
I'm sorry, the other Paul. Mr. Sabelli, are you speaking to this?
Yes, sir.
And do you have anything you want to add? Although we're already pretty familiar with it.
No, sir.
Okay. Committee, any questions? Tony?
If I recall last meeting, there was an area of that house that was going to be removed. For some reason, I was thinking it was going to be the enclosed porch. Now, this preliminary survey is showing that remaining in the area to the south. That would be the south being removed. Am I mistaken there? Is it the area to the south that's being removed?
It is the area to the south being removed, Tony.
Okay, thank you. So the 14-foot setback is basically to that enclosed, basically the enclosed porch, if I'm reading that correctly.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Lori?
I don't think we asked this the last time, but will you still be selling worms? I used to buy worms from this location when we used to drop the fishing line in.
No, no worms.
Oh, okay, just prepared to make a motion.
It's too close to supper for those kind of questions.
Prepared to make a motion, Mr. Chair. I see no issues with the proposed minor variance, technical in nature, as what we should have probably done is heard this at the last meeting in conjunction with the severance. For those reasons, I do move to approve application A-13-21.
Okay, supported by Daniel. Yeah, it would have been good, except we didn't have the application at the last meeting, so. Chad.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment on that because that is, it seems like an obvious, practice to do that. But what we do when we're not certain that the committee is going to approve a severance, we inform the applicant of that, and we let the applicant know that there's going to be relief necessary. Instead of paying 2 application fees and risking $1,400 versus $700, we ask them to proceed with the severance first. and then apply for the variance after that. So that's why we do it in a two-step process for some of these applications.
Makes a lot of sense. Okay, we have a motion on the floor, I think, right, Donna?
Yes,
Okay, anybody to speak to the motion? No? No. Okay, all in favor of the motion to approve? Everybody's in favor. Thank you very much. And
Thank you, everyone.
last but not least, Massimo, you've been very patient.
Thank you very much.
application for minor variance A 1421 Carlesimo Holdings, Inc., 1840 Blackacre Drive. The purpose of the application is to request relief from subsection 5.37E of zoning bylaw 85-18, which establishes a maximum of 2 driveways for any permitted use. The applicant is requesting 3 driveways as outlined on the attached site plan. The property is designated Business Park in the Sandwich South Official Plan and zoned M1 in the Sandwich South zoning bylaw. Notice of hearing for the above submission was circulated to landowners within a radius of 60 meters, 200 feet of the subject property. A list of said owners is on file. Notice of hearing with a sketch attached was sent to the applicant, each council member, clerk, Public Works and Engineering Department, Planning and Building Services, Fire Department, and all required agencies, and to each member of the Committee of Adjustment. Engineering's comments were outlined in the planning report. No comments received from the building department, and IRCA has no objection to the application for minor variance.
Mr. Carlesimo, do you want to give us any more information?
That's about it, really.
That's it? Okay. Good, looks pretty simple. Committee members. Paul.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Chad, I was just wondering if you can, oh, wait, hold on. I was just wondering if you could show us where the third driveway is going to go on the map. I'm not sure if I quite follow it right.
Just going to share the aerial photo again. So this is the subject property here. Let me zoom in on it. So this is the current driveway. The 2 new buildings are being built on the east half of the lot, and the access drives will coincide with those 2 buildings. And let me just show you on the sketch. So those are the 2 new access drives, and then that's the existing one that you see on the aerial photograph.
Got it. Thank you.
Anybody else? It raises the natural question. There's a nice developable piece left in between there.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be back for a 4th driveway, you think?
Hopefully, eventually, thinking about it, if the opportunity comes up, or in addition to the other adjacent buildings.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the configuration of your development there. If you need a 4th one, I don't know what Chad's recommendation would be in that case.
For another driveway per se.
Yeah,
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yep.
I would be supportive of that, because the lots would still be larger on average than the lots within the broader industrial park. It's characterized, the Old Castle Business Park is characterized by a lot of small lots, and that's the reason we have this provision in the bylaw, just to get better control over access onto municipal rights of way. With all these transport trucks moving in and out, and workers coming and going. It's a very busy place, and having that standard helps to control access. In this case, because the lot is so large, it's not relevant. And again, it's a perfect case for a minor variance application.
okay. thank you. Anybody else? Seeing nothing. Motion, somebody. Paul?
I support the recommendation, the motion to move ahead as prepared by administration. It makes sense that each building is going to want its own driveway. So I make a motion to agree with administration, move ahead.
Motion to approve the application, okay. Support by Tony. Any question on the motion? Lori?
I'm just wondering about if a condition needs to be held, or sorry, needs to be made, knowing that there is ongoing review of the site servicing and stormwater management plans. I mean, if it's ongoing, I don't think we need to add a condition, but can we hear from Mr. Jeffrey on that?
Sorry, you went very quiet there, Lori. I apologize. I couldn't.
Oh, weird. Okay, just on a condition, if we need to add a condition about site servicing drawings being submitted or a stormwater management plan being submitted. However, I do see in your report that they are currently under review. Do we add a condition in this case because they've already been submitted?
Yeah, I don't believe so. It's covered and they're under review.
Okay, thank you. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. On the motion, anybody have any further questions? Okay, on the motion, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you. None opposed. Thank you, Massimo.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
And so that brings us to deferrals. We have no deferrals.
None,
No unfinished business.
no, sir.
Anybody have new business? Everybody gets signed up?
No, we have one member that needs to sign up still.
Sorry, Donna.
Tony!
It's nice that you stood to be recognized.
I mean, there's no poker face there. It was pretty obvious it was Tony.
I mean, if you could see the redness on my face right now. As soon as she said it, I went, oh, no.
We sort of can.
That means we're done. Motion to adjourn. Daniel.
I'll second.
Seconded by Tony with the red face.
Yep. Tomorrow morning, Don, I promise you.
Okay.
See you in a month, maybe.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.